What's up, guys? This is my first ever YouTube video. My name is Maddox, and this is my 1996 Nissan 240SX that I LS swapped, and I want to show you guys the cheapest possible way to do an LS swap. Now, mine is definitely not the cheapest. There's a couple things I splurged on, and I'm going to show you guys how you cannot splurge on those and do it even cheaper if you want, but also why I splurged on those specific items. So let's pop the hood, and I want to walk you guys through this. Here she is. This is my 5.3 LS 240SX. So first off, if you guys are wondering the reason I went LS, well, I had a KA, I turboed it, and I loved it, but I blew it up and I could not get another good deal on a KA, so I thought, why not just go LS? Alright, let's get straight into the price of everything that you see here. This is a running, driving car. I drive it almost every day. Super fun. It even has heat and it's stupid cold out, so perfect. Now, I'm not going to be including anything that has to do not with the drivetrain. So nothing about the suspension, nothing about the body, nothing about the car itself. I don't really know how much I am into the car, and I don't feel like calculating it up because that's just not a good idea. Let's focus on this Marketplace 5.3. All right, so the engine itself, I paid $450 for this engine off of Facebook Marketplace. I didn't know if it ran. It came with all the truck accessories, and I set it up, ran it on a stand, and it ran good, so I tossed it in. So engine was $450, and my transmission is a non-traditional swap transmission. It's a NV3500 out of a 4.8 Silverado, which is, again, non-traditional. But it's the cheapest transmission that bolts up. For a stock or mild cam 5.3, it's going to hold the power, so I'm good with it. And it doesn't shift like a truck. I'm going to go over all the engine accessories and everything around it, and then we'll get into the transmission and how all that works. Alright, so this is a LS1 intake. I will be upgrading to LS6 ASAP as soon as I can find a good deal on one. Mostly because this one's also broken, but I paid $120, I believe, because it is missing the tab down there. But it doesn't leak. I have vacuum tested it, so it works for now. This is a Camaro water pump. It was like $100. It's an A premium one, and these little spacers for it are $35. I have power steering stuff coming soon, but the alternator is all I'm running right now, and that bracket was $50. Alternator came with the engine. This intake I got off of a V6 Mustang, or the filter off of V6 Mustang at Junkyard, $4. And then this pipe is a Amazon like $20 one. I'm using the stock dual cam throttle cable. Everyone says you either need an aftermarket throttle cable or go single cam throttle cable, but this one works fine and it doesn't even get close to hitting. So that works if you're wondering. I'll talk about the fuel rails when I get to the fuel system. Another big thing is, if you can see it down there, which you cannot, there it is, my oil pan. Now, this is something you can go a little bit cheaper on if you buy an Amazon one for like $200 and notch it out. But I bought the ISR one that does not require you modifying the subframe at all. And basically, I got a really good deal on it from Marketplace with my remote oil filter kit. I got it all for $200. So I got a really good deal on that. I got lucky. So realistically, you're gonna spend $500 on that if you wanna get the nice pan, and another $100 for the remote filter. Which I will say, if you do go remote filter, do not use the rubber lines that come with them. Just buy this little piece for cheap and then get some AN lines. This is a $30 Evil Energy braided line kit, and this piece alone I believe is like $50. And then the next big piece is these headers. So these are technically Siki LS swap headers. They are steel, they're the first generation. Again, I got these off Facebook Marketplace for $120. Retail, these are like $1,300, which don't make this model anymore, but the new stainless ones, $1,300. So the reliable, cheap way you can get away with this is, on this side, you can use the stock manifold, and on this side, I think Corvette manifold is what you use. On this side, you can also, but you have to modify it a little bit. You have to like cut it and weld the collector down. That's the cheapest way to do it. If you can find a good deal on headers like me, I definitely recommend going that route. But that I just got lucky. And then any like these heater core hoses, radiator hoses, the way that I do all this is I just go to the junkyard and grab a bunch of them. Like I grabbed like 20 radiator hoses, and it's super cheap. It was like $20 for all of it. And I brought them home, cut some, made it work for my bottom and my top. This is a KA radiator. I think it's actually out of a S13. Came with another car I bought, and I just have two fans zip tied to it. And I mean, it works great. The KA radiators have these things on both sides, which works perfect for an LS. And I don't know if I mentioned, this engine is pretty much bone stock. The things I did to it, obviously I resealed the oil pan and stuff. I did the rear main seal and that little barbell I upgraded to the billet one. And then I have the Melling high volume oil pump in there, which works great, and a new timing chain. Besides that, I didn't do anything. I didn't take the heads off or anything. Now wiring, we'll talk about in a minute with engine management. But I believe that's mostly it for the engine itself. Now, the mounts and stuff, little did you know, you can literally get these eBay mounts. Let me get a light down there. Those are literally eBay mounts. They're like 70 bucks for both of them. And they literally they bolt right in. There's nothing to them. And the trans mount is, mine's custom, so I really don't know the best way to, you can't buy one for this transmission. So mine is the stock trans mount for the manual trans with like a block welded to the back of it and 2 bolts going through it with a bushing, and it works fine. Now let's get into the transmission system. Okay, master cylinder and slave cylinder. First of all, I'm using a T56 slave cylinder in the NV3500 because it makes it a lot easier to get a remote bleeder on there, which this is my remote bleeder, so I can bleed it from up here, that shiny line. And then this green line is my real clutch line. The remote bleeder line was $45. The clutch line was $70 because it's a Sickie. This is the generic Wilwood master cylinder. I kind of had to modify the fork a little bit to work with my pedal. I made my own fork and just welded a nut to it so it goes on here. Works fine. This is like 50 bucks. And then that little, see the shiny thing back there? It's an adapter for the 240 firewall is like 30 bucks. I believe Sickie makes it. While we're here, talk about my oil pressure gauge. I will be upgrading soon to a non-manual one, but manual ones are cheap and reliable. This was 20 bucks from like O'Reilly's or something. And it seems like everything besides wiring for the engine bay and fuel system, which I'll get to in a minute. So now that we got clutch stuff figured out, also it's a stock 4.8 LS clutch and flywheel, nothing else to it. So if you need that, just go 2000 Silverado clutch and flywheel, and you're good. T56 slave cylinder. Now the NV3500, people may think shifts and has the gearing of a truck, but it actually doesn't. It has very similar gear ratios to a T56, pretty much a T56 minus 6 gear, and it can't hold the power. This one specifically, I've known a lot of people that put a lot more power into these than me. Stock 5.3, it doesn't even phase it. But the problem is the shifter comes out way up there, and a lot of people, they'll just weld like a little thing, which works fine if it's like a drift car or something, but I like this thing to look nice, so I made this little remote shifter. So all this is I have a bracket down here that holds this universal joint up, universal joint, and then this linkage has to be able to pivot. We're rolling 0.5. So I call it a mirror shifter. I call it a mirror shifter or remote shifter, but I mean, it works fine, and you're not, either reaching up in the dash or have a long throw. Now, I overpaid for this transmission. I paid $800 for it. Not really what they're worth, but it's kind of hard to find one, so I just needed one, and I got what I got. You can get them for a lot cheaper if you're lucky. The shifter, I'm not going to calculate into anything. It's an old 944 shifter and some scrap metal that works fine. So, yeah. Then something under me, the drive shaft. I got that custom made. Yokes included, so new yokes and the full steel drive shaft I paid $500 for at a local shop. Local shops are the best way to go for something like this. It's a little bit weird. Although do be wary because the 4L60 slip yoke has a little hole on the back of it where it kind of breathes. But since this is a manual transmission, that whole slip yoke is wet. So if you put the 4L60 slip yoke in this, it goes in. But if they have that little breather hole, you will just spill MTF everywhere. And I had a big problem trying to figure out where it was coming from until I figured that out. So just be wary of that if you're running a 4L60 slip yoke. Exhaust, I'm not even going to go under there. I will put in a clip of it running. It's a 2.5-inch white pipe, just a straight pipe. It works. It's not pretty. I got it off Marketplace for 25 bucks, and it was a little off, so I welded some V-bands on, stuck it on, and now I have an exhaust coming out the back. Again, another thing I'm going to upgrade later on. Yeah. I didn't talk about it, but this is a water temp gauge. Now I have it plumbed into my radiator hose, my bottom one, so you probably couldn't see it. This is like 30 bucks on Amazon, and I was actually really happy with it. It's got a nice little plug. It plugs in, comes with the sensor, and this is a little digital gauge. This one doesn't work anymore because I don't use it, but it's nice. 30 bucks, you get what you pay for, you would think, but I mean, I think it's a little bit nicer than 30 bucks. I like this thing. Now we're gonna talk about engine management last, but I think that's all for the interior and the engine bay. Let's talk about fuel system. Now, if I could go back, what I would do is just put an upgraded pump in and run the stock lines with a return stall regulator up there, but I went a little bit overboard on it. Now, quick mention of this. This has all been here since it was Turbo KA. You don't actually have to put the battery in the back for an LS. Like, there's room up there if I wanted it up there, but it's already back here, and it's kind of a cleaner look anyway. But back to my fuel system. So this is the Evil Energy LS swap fuel system. Now, I replaced the fuel pump on the hanger and just put a piece of hose to the bottom of the tank, in-tank rated hose. And I mean, it works. The fuel gauge still works and stuff, which is nice. I believe this kit is like 250 bucks. You get the pressure regulator, the pump, the filter, and a bunch of line. I also have that little shutoff in there, which I'd never use because I have a manual pump shutoff now. 250 bucks for this, not including the rails. I am running Amazon EV6 injectors. It was like 70 bucks for all of them. And the rails also off Amazon, maybe 100 bucks, I think, at most. Probably less than that, but it literally, since I have the regulator back there, I just run one line up here to the rails, a little crossover, and that's all for the fuel system. All right, now, the fun stuff, wiring. I splurged recently. This car was not always on standalone, but it is now on Ace's EFI standalone system, which, I'm going to be honest, I think is well worth it if you're doing an LS swap. If you want to be able to get into a swap without having to learn to tune and mess with stock Chevy ECUs, which are not that fun if you don't know what you're doing, which I didn't, go with the Ace's EFI and not the HP tuners, in my opinion. So, first of all, getting a stock harness and ECU in here was super cheap. The ECU came with a motor. You can get a standalone harness for this thing. I got it for 80 bucks on Amazon. Not this harness, I already sold the old one, but super cheap. And I sent it out to get it VATS deleted for 50 bucks on eBay, and it ran great. So, I mean, that was, what, 130 bucks to have a running 5.3, but it didn't run right. I mean, it was great. It started, it drove, but it never quite ran right. It didn't idle right. It had weird little misfire issues. So I spent another $400 and got HP tuners, which is not a bad investment. I will use this a lot to jailbreak other ECUs for my dad's truck, for other cars. This is a tool, not really a part, but if you're doing this, you're probably going to need this expensive tool. So if you know what you're doing, go that route. It's cool. Being able to tune a stock ECU is cool, but I didn't want to mess with it anymore. I was tired of it. And Aces had this huge sale for their full standalone system, which is what I'm running. This is what we're going to talk about. So 750 bucks, which is almost half off. I got the harness, the ECU, and that little screen you may have seen in there. And look, I'm just saying, this thing runs better than it ever has. I'm comfortable driving it now. I drive it everywhere. I don't have to idle it with my right foot. And I mean, for 750 bucks, you cannot beat it. The harness is plug and play, but there is a few things you have to wire in, so I'll go over that. I have this little fuse box for anything I need engine power for, which I only have my fan power wire on there for some reason. I don't really use it for anything else like I thought I would. I do want to talk about one more thing before we get into the ECU wiring, and that is the starter wiring. All right, so LS starter, you run the big positive terminal to a big battery power wire, and that's it. Then you just need a little signal wire that gets 12 volts on the little peg on there, and that will start your car. So you can run a button, or it's actually really easy to get it to work with a S14 or any 240, I believe. All right, so if you're looking on here, see all them wires? So that black and green one with the green wire going out of it, now this is not as ghetto as it looks. They're all soldered and just covered in electrical tape just to protect the wiring, but it is all properly soldered in there. So this top one, the green one, is your signal wire. This goes to your starter, and when you hit the key and crank it, it gets 12 volts only when cranking. So your starter doesn't stay on, but you crank your car. Now, this one, this black and white one, is a ignition power wire. So I have my alternator ran to this. This is my one wire alternator exciter wire. It goes through the car onto the back of the alternator, or no, onto the plug of the alternator. And then this red wire goes to my ECU, so it's ignition power for the ECU. And that's literally all it takes to start this thing with a key. Back to the one wire alternator. So if anyone's confused, there's a peg on the back of the alternator. You run your big heavy power wire onto that peg back to your battery. And then this little one wire plug is the one that goes to the ignition power. Okay, let me expose myself with my wiring mess. Now, I do want to also say the Aces EFI stuff is a lot smaller. The Chevy ECU would not fit nicely under this cover like this one does. First of all, can't really see them wires when you're normally up here, so don't judge me. This is like a little harness they have for accessories. I have it to run launch control, which is stupid, and then like my fans and other stuff like that. I'm not gonna pull this cover off just because I don't want to mess with putting it back on. But under there, tiny ECU and 3 relays. You wire in the relays, wire in the ECU, give it power and ignition power. Works with the key, starts your car, and it runs amazing. Little demonstration. You can hear the fuel pump's on. My fans are on. And look at that, beautiful ECU. And I mean, honestly, that's all there is to it. I am running a stock diff, I should mention that, but like, this is more simple than people make it seem. This LS swap was pretty simple to get in here. With the aftermarket support, these cars are not hard to do. So I just wanted to show you guys how to do it cheaply. I'm gonna put the total right here. I'm sure this was a pretty bad video because I've never made a YouTube video before and I was just kind of rambling. There was no preparation for this. So hopefully I didn't miss anything important, and that's gonna give you guys a good general price point of how cheaply you can do this. Well, how much I paid for the full LS swap. So if you guys want to LS swap your 240, that's the cheapest way to do it. And I feel like I explained some of the hard stuff I had trouble figuring out, like the key wiring, because I wanted to start on the key. That's kind of hard to figure out if you don't know. And engine management stuff is also pretty hard if you don't know. So hopefully this video helped someone out there that's going to watch this and use it to LS swap their 240. If you need any help, DM me on Instagram. I'll leave my handle in the thing. I'll probably respond. Or if you have any questions, or if you just want to see more of the car, go follow my Instagram.